In this video, I'm going to show you how to place the front lower control arm on this Nissan Frontier. This is located behind your front wheel. It's bolted onto the frame, and it is highly recommended that you get the bolts that bolt it on also, because often they'll be seized and stuck in there, so you'll have to cut them. Let's get started. With the vehicle safely raised and supported, use a 21mm socket, remove all 6 lug nuts, and then pull the wheel off. And now remove your wheel. Now on the knuckle side, we'll see where the outer tie rod is held on with this mounting nut. However, on top of that is a cotter pin which we have to remove. This one is quite rusted, so I may have to break it off, but I'm going to try to remove it first. Oftentimes they get stuck though. I'm just going to cut mine off and use my impact to get the nut over that. If you had to, you could drill out that old cotter pin after the nut is off. Use a 22mm socket and remove this mounting nut. I am going to reinstall it just a couple threads. What this is going to do is when the tie rod stud breaks free, it's going to stop it from falling down all the way. That's plenty. Now hit this with a hammer and break free that stud. All right, and that came off, so we're going to remove the mounting nut now. Pull this off. Now from the back side of the caliper, you'll see 2 19mm mounting bolts. We have to remove these so we can pull the caliper and bracket off as an assembly and set it aside. With both of those off, the caliper and bracket assembly with the pads should slide off. Now you want to hang it with a bungee cord or a hook so it does not pull on the brake hose. From the front side, remove the rotor. If it's stuck, you can tap between the lug studs and break it free. Let's unhook the ABS cable, remove it from these 2 retainers on the back of the knuckle. Follow it and you'll see one more attaches right to the brake line bracket. Follow the wire up till you see where it's plugged in. Now the plug is actually secured to the frame. This up here is the vehicle harness. So with a pocket screwdriver, I'm going to try to pry this in and up and out. There we go. The screwdriver helps me push on this little tab, which locks it in. And now we can use a trim tool and unhook this. From the back side of the knuckle, you'll see where the hub is bolted on. We'll use a 17mm socket and remove all 4 bolts that hold the hub and bearing assembly onto the knuckle. For this lower one, you can either use a swivel or you could spin the knuckle the other way or do it by hand, whatever works for you. Now you want to use a hammer, tap this back and forth until it pops out. Also keep in mind the backing shield will come off with it, and remove the whole thing. Okay, there it is. Now at the bottom of the knuckle, we'll have a 17mm headed bolt with a 21mm nut. We're going to have to hold the nut and unthread the bolt, or vice versa, whatever works best for you. That's how I'm going to do it, and just be very careful, go back and forth if needed, because you don't want to break this bolt in the knuckle. This one is quite stuck, so what I will do is try to break free the nut. That'll release pressure off the bolt, and then we'll try to spin the bolt. It's most likely stuck inside of this hole in the knuckle. All right, so with that off, we'll put our power tool on this and try to spin it free. I've already sprayed it with rust penetrant a bunch. What often happens is, like I said, they'll get stuck right in here. Even if the nut is off, you're gonna have a hard time taking it out. Oh, looks like I got it. At At this point I have it spinning, so I'm going to take an air chisel and try to drive it out. Now what we want to do is take a pry bar or a chisel or something that'll fit in here nice and tight, hammer it in, and that'll spread this knuckle apart so we can take the lower ball joint off easier. Tap on the knuckle and hopefully the vibrations will break it free. Got it. Let's disconnect the sway bar link off the lower control arm. Mine has already been replaced, so this is an 18mm mounting nut, and I'm going to use a 5mm hex to hold the center. If you still have the original, I believe it's going to be a 17mm mounting nut, and you can use whatever wrench fits on the back side. There should be a cutout right here to hold it. Take the mounting nut off completely. And we'll try to push this stud through. There we go. Now let's disconnect the lower strut bolt from the control arm. You'll use a 19mm socket on the nut side and a 19mm wrench to hold the bolt. I'll go back and forth, spray it with some rust penetrant. Okay, there it is. To get this bolt out, you'll see that the sway bar is most likely in the way. What you can do is either lift up on the control arm with a jack, or you can use a pry bar, pry down on the sway bar. There it is. Now we'll use a pry bar, pry the strut right out of the control arm. It's going to want to sit this way naturally just because of how it was all bolted together, but at least they're separated. This is the rearward bolt of the control arm. Right here we have a 19mm mounting nut. The bolt is a 21mm headed bolt. Let's remove the mounting nut and then try to spin it. Most likely it's going to be stuck and we'll have to cut it. So this is why new bolts are recommended when doing this job. I'll put a breaker bar with a 21mm socket on here and just try to twist this. And as you can see, it is seized. So you have a couple options. You could try to work it back and forth, or if that doesn't work, you can cut it. What's happening here is the entire bushing is twisting, and it's not actually letting go of the bolt. Well, we're definitely gonna have to cut this one. Let's try the front one and see if that one breaks free. Same exact setup over here. It's the same bolt actually. The best way to cut these is with a reciprocating saw and a metal blade, of course. You want to go right in here up against this bracket of the frame, and then the same on this side. On this side, we might end up cutting through the sleeve as well, that thicker piece. Over here, you can see the bolt actually. So that's what I'm going to aim for. That way I cut the least amount of metal possible, because it's just going to take longer if I cut extra. Go slow and steady and make sure that the blade sits in the middle as you cut. You don't want to cut your frame, and of course, don't overheat your blade because it's just going to destroy it prematurely. After you've cut most of the way through, if you don't want to continue, you can most likely just break it off. And now we'll cut the other side. All right, that's off. Now, we do the same thing to the rearward bolt. This is my final cut here. I have the control arm supported with a bungee cord so it doesn't fall to the ground, but rather gets supported. It will fall off the frame though. And there it is. There's our control arm. This part of the bolt didn't come out for me. That's okay. You can use a pry bar and a hammer and just tap it out. Now I'll just take a wire brush, clean up the mounting area on the frame, making sure there's no debris or rust in the way. I'm going to add some grease to the inside and the outside brackets of the frame for two reasons. One, I don't want the control arm to get stuck in there, and number two, I want to prevent corrosion, especially where I cut and my blade accidentally hit the frame and scuffed it. That's now bare metal that will rust very fast. It's time to get the new control arm in. I'm going to line it up. I have one of the bolts ready to go. That way I can stick it in. This one seems to line up, so I'm going to put the bolt through. That way it'll be secured on here. I can let go and then get it to line up on the rear to put the other bolt in. If you need to tap it in for some reason, use a rubber mallet or a dead blow hammer, not a steel hammer, because that'll damage the control arm. All right, let's get that rear bolt in. I coated my bolts with some grease, that way they don't seize up, or at least it lowers the chance of them seizing up in the future. And on the other side, we'll put the washers on, as well as the mounting nut, and we'll do the same to the other bolt. Let's get these mounting nuts closer, not tight, but I don't want them to move around side to side anymore. I'm going to use a 21mm socket on the nut side and a 22mm wrench to hold the bolt. And as you tighten it, although we're not making it tight, I do want to bottom it out, so make sure that the washers, the cam adjustment washers, are seated into their groove. We'll do the same to the other bolt. Now I want to join the control arm up with the strut and stick the bolt in. We're going to have to pry down on the sway bar as well. All right, so that's in. We'll put the nut on. I'm going to get this closer, but I won't tighten it up fully yet. All right, we'll leave it like that. I need to torque this at right height. And now because this is in and the control arm is bolted up, let's support it from underneath, raise it up at right height, and torque the control arm bolts as well as the strut bolt. I have a jack stand set up right underneath the bracket for the sway bar link. It's a very sturdy bracket, reinforced with a few different pieces of metal, and I don't want to be anywhere near the ball joint because it will damage it if I accidentally poke it. So I'm going to lower the vehicle. I'm doing that because I'm on a lift, but if you're on the ground, you can simply put a floor jack underneath and raise the suspension up. That right there is right height, so we're gonna torque everything down now. We'll start with the strut bolt, finish tightening it up. Torque this mounting nut to 155 foot-pounds. Now it's time for the lower control arm bolts. We'll bottom them out first. And then we'll torque them to 100 foot-pounds, both of them, front and rear. All of this is tightened up so we can release pressure off of our suspension. Let's get our sway bar link back through. I'll put the mounting nut back on and we'll snug it up. All right, that's nice and tight. Torque this to 62 foot-pounds. Now reinstall the knuckle on the lower ball joint. I recommend putting some grease on there where the ball joint goes through. Press it up all the way. I have a pull jack underneath that I'm going to put pressure upwards on the knuckle with. And what that's going to do is help me drive it back up onto the ball joint. For me, it seemed a little bit difficult by hand. It wouldn't seat all the way. And there we go. That just went right in. Once you do have it installed, put your bolt through. I put anti-seize on the bolt so it doesn't corrode in the future. Once the bolt is through, you can release your support. Now we can put on the mounting nut. And we'll tighten this up. Torque this to 70 foot-pounds. Line this up. Make sure that wire stays out of the way. Put the bearing in. It should slide in all the way nice and smooth. Try your best to keep things lined up so you can more easily put the bolts in. And now from the back side, thread at least one bolt in. That way you can let go and put in the rest of them. With all of them in, hold the bearing and snug them up. I'm going to go in a cross pattern to seat this all properly. Torque these bolts to 44 foot-pounds. Because I tighten them up in a cross pattern, I'm not going to go in a cross pattern to torque them, but if you were bottoming them out now while torquing, definitely go in a cross pattern. Double check them all. All right, those are tight. Reattach your ABS wire, put a little bit of silicone paste on those bushings. That'll make things easier to line up. Resecure that connector onto the frame. And then grab the other end of it and plug it in. There we go. Before installing our rotor, make sure you coat this hub with some anti-seize, that way it doesn't corrode in the future. If you are reusing an old rotor, clean the backside where it mounts to the hub. That way it can mount nice and flat. I'm putting on a new rotor so I don't have to worry about it. Reinstall the caliper assembly. Have your 2 bolts ready to mount it back on. And we'll tighten them up. Torque these to 136 foot-pounds. All right, that's torqued. Bring the knuckle over, put the outer tie rod stud up and through, and get the mounting nut on. Snug up this mounting nut. Torque this to 63 foot-pounds. It is normal for this to want to spin as you try to torque it. That's tight. To make sure that you can lock this in, turn the castle nut until one of the slots lines up with the cotter pin hole. If it does not line up, or if it's close, continue tightening and never loosen no matter how close this is. Now you can take your cotter pin, slip it through, and we'll bend it to lock it in. All right, that's locked in. Reinstall your wheel. If your vehicle has those center caps, you'd want to put that on now, then the lug nuts. We'll install all 6 of these, bottom them out in a cross pattern, and then also in a cross pattern, we'll torque them to 98 foot-pounds. 98 foot-pounds in a cross pattern, here we go. Double check them all. And take it for a road test.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.